Responding to alien drone services. I'm not sure if this guy is just like a pseudo expert or a troll or what. But what's up, alien drone services? So you said here that beef agriculture is criticized for methane release, not CO2. No one has voiced any concern about CO2 metabolism from any animal, you say. You make sure and put it in italics. Well, okay. You're kind of doing a straw man argument here. Because CO2, it's not just about the actual release from the animal's mouth. It's also about the planet's ability to store CO2 from plants, trees, and grass, and the soil. The soil stores CO2 as well. So part of the argument against beef is the agriculture means that trees have to be torn down, and then other things have to be built, like concrete areas, and then the earth can't store the CO2. So it's not just about the direct CO2 produced right out of the cow's mouth. CO2 is part of the conversation no matter what. And when you say CO2 production from any animal has never had any concern raised, well, first off, that doesn't matter. Just because someone didn't raise concern, that's not an argument. It's like people don't seem very concerned about pit bull bites now, do they? But does that mean we shouldn't talk about it? But yes, CO2 being produced from other animals is raised as a concern. So to illustrate how CO2 being produced by other animals is a concern, I'll answer your next little response here, where you say panting cannot produce excess CO2, what is produced from normal metabolism. Yes, it can, because panting takes a lot of energy. And I never said that panting is the direct cause of CO2. Panting is a symptom of cooling your body. And the more heat that the dog has, the more food that the dog has, the more obese a dog has, like obesity, well, the dog will pant more because it has to break down all that food. And that has been raised as a concern. And again, so what if it hasn't? The CO2 from dogs, if you're in a room full of a bunch of dogs, you can detect it with your human nose because of the extra CO2. It's like working in a shop that does a lot of welding and they create ozone gases, or working in a shop that does emission testing for cars because cars produce CO2. Your nose can sense that kind of acrid acid from having extra CO2. So here's a little article you can educate yourself on before you go making comments on my videos. Excess carbon dioxide in dogs. So when dogs get shock or other things, if they eat too much, they get excess CO2. And what do? They pant like crazy to get rid of it. Irregular heartbeat, losing consciousness, dizzy, abnormal. Dogs do this all the time. People overfeed their dogs, and you see an obese dog sitting there just panting like crazy because the people are feeding it food. In fact, dogs produce so much CO2 that they actually create an environment of low oxygen and high CO2 for themselves, and people buy all of these oxygen products for their dog. Oxygen tanks, oxygen masks, even these containers. They give oxygen therapy for dogs. Why would they need oxygen therapy? Because all of the cellular metabolism sucks up oxygen. It pumps out CO2, and dogs more and more are hyper, or they're overfed, or they have some kind of cellular metabolism going on inside them, like tapeworms eating their bodies. And so they get all this oxygen treatment. So yes, the production of CO2 from dogs is deeply talked about and deeply studied, and we have all kinds of $1,000 products that people buy all the time to increase the amount of oxygen in their room. You will never see, well, you probably will see a person that has asthma that has an oxygen tank. Those people are recommended that they don't put their dogs near that because the dog can use their oxygen. And the fact that we give all this supplemental oxygen to dogs, tells you something about what kind of CO2 oxygen balance is being created by dogs. So your little comments and the little end again. I hate it when people say end again. Like they just want what they say to be the be all end all. End again. It's kind of like saying I already told you. Well, if you want to discuss these things with me and post up some of your research, that's fine. But if you're just going to jump in my comments and act like you're an expert and then push out this point of, well, no one's ever raised concern about it before. Well, yeah, no one has ever raised concern about a lot of the stuff from dog culture. The parasites that get in our body from their feces. Hardly anybody has raised the issue of the fact that dogs reduce the amount of oxygen in a room. But that should be brought up too because that's bad for pregnant mothers. And a lot of the symptoms that pregnant mothers suffer, and then we look at all the dog ownership and how much it's gone up. Many of the symptoms that pregnant mothers have are related to having low oxygen. So just because it hasn't been talked about doesn't mean it shouldn't be. So have fun commenting on my videos until I just start deleting them.